all so much. I first want to mention that it really has a little bit to do with me and a lot to do with a whole lot of prayer, because that's this effort has been a joint effort that's basically held up by prayer. I'm just saying. And so amazing people like Aaron and so many folks have made all this happen, and really appreciate the opportunity to share. So very, very quickly, I want to give a super short overview of how IPSE came to be. Okay. And so I am first a parent, and my husband and I have a son who is now 24. He has autism. He also has a mild intellectual disability. So we got the bonus of both diagnoses, which is always awesome. And that has been the catalyst for this journey. And so throughout his life, I was always an advocate. My husband and I were always there advocating for him inclusion in every possible way, and starting social skills groups and running. I was a co-director of a parent support group for a number of years. And then when we were about in 8th grade, and we were at the IEP meeting starting to talk about transition, and they said, well, what are you plans for your son, who, by the way, he was not in that meeting, which I thought was always entertaining. I said, well, you know, he wants to go to college. That's what my husband and I did. And we know that he could benefit from that. And he wants to go to college. So he's going to go to college. And I had a large blanket of silence that covered the room and very pleasant smiles. And so I thought, okay, that's not a good feeling. So another long story short, researched, found out that although there was nothing in Oklahoma that provided the supports that students with intellectual disability would need to be successful, there were programs. There were about 145 programs at that time. This was in 2012. And so I started researching, connected with the right people, and a mission was born. And so we started a nonprofit called Lead, Learn, Live. I founded that nonprofit. That nonprofit was able to raise the funding, partner with the first program in the state, which is Northeastern State University in Tahlequah. We'll talk about that in a minute. And we are partnering with OSU to begin another one starting in fall 2022. OU also started one, and USAO in Chickasha has a program for students on the autism spectrum. So that is just kind of a very quick overview of how I came to be in this position, because after that work, I had the opportunity to leave what had been my past career and start focusing full-time on inclusive post-secondary education in Oklahoma. And so what does IPSE mean? So inclusive, okay, that means there is full access for these students, everything a university has to offer, and they have options. Okay, they have options. They're no longer having to take just XYZ classes. They are taking classes on what they're interested in. Post-secondary, okay, that means after high school. This is what we're talking about today, is really after high school as an adult learner. That's a significant difference from K through 12. Education, that means education. That means there's expectations of work. That means there's a meaningful credential when you're done with all that work, and you're wanting to learn. Learning, the more we learn, the better off we are. Any age, doesn't matter. And so they're comprehensive programs that are at an IHE, Institution of Higher Ed, okay? So they are at a university. And although this is very much oh my gosh, I am so relieved. This is, it is a feel-good thing to know that your student has the option to go. It is far more than a feel-good, this is great, isn't that nice thing. The purpose of these efforts are employment and a better life. And if you go down to, I'm going to I'm going to kind of skim over a lot of this because I know there was more interest in preparation, and I want to spend a little more time on that. So I can always come back to different things as people have questions. But I used to say that bottom information was my whole presentation, because really that 34% of individuals with disabilities are employed. That is a national average. That is not Oklahoma. Oklahoma's in the 18 to 24%. But we are talking statistical backed up data. And so those are hard figures, that 34.9% of individuals are employed with a little e. That means that person might be going to sheltered workshop. That means they may spend 2 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours a week. But students that complete inclusive post-secondary education programs, 64% and above. Remember, those are averages. 64% and above of those students have competitive employment. That is a difference. It is a significant difference. Those students are able to have a job that they have worked hard to study for, and they are earning a competitive wage. So it really, it's a life changer. Statistically speaking, and we had to have that data to do everything we've done, because it has to have an outcome that makes a difference. Quality of life, that is where all of this leads. Employment means you're out in the community, you have community engagement, meaning you're doing a job, you're enhancing your independence. And what these programs do is all of those things work together and support each other. I actually had a conversation with the co-director of Think College. We'll also talk about that in a minute. She oversees the programs all over the nation, and a new data point they have is that 98% of the students that they have polled recently feel absolutely engaged in their communities. 98%. I mean, Eileen this morning mentioned that, being engaged and having that support is so critical to a healthy life. And so that quality of life outcome is what we're all about. So what do we have in Oklahoma? So we have NSU Riverhawk Scholar Program that began in 2018. It's in Tahlequah. It is a 4-year inclusive certificate program for students with intellectual developmental disabilities. Certificate program means that it is not a degree program. Okay, these students are attending college, they are learning, and they are doing all the things a college student does, but guess what? They are there because they need a supported program. They have an intellectual developmental disability. So they are receiving a certificate. They are not receiving a graduate degree. And so University of Oklahoma Sooner Works started the next year in 2019. Very, very similar format as NSU, but it is in OU Norman campus, 4-year, again, certificate program. OSU, that is the next Lead, Learn, Live program that we are major funding, and that starts fall of 2022. Very, very excited about that. It is in Stillwater. It's a little bit different model. It's a 2-year inclusive certificate program, but they also have a 2-year advanced opportunity. And so this program differs from the ones at NSU and OU, because it is targeted for a population of student that needs more supports than the students that are typically at NSU and at OU, which is very important. Lead, Learn, Live, the nonprofit, the board felt it was very, very important to have options. And students with intellectual developmental disability have all differing levels of needs. And so we wanted a different population at OSU. We're excited about that. University of Science and Arts, and that is in Chickasha. They have the Neil Witt Center for Neurodiversity. Now that is a degree seeking program. It's a 4-year degree seeking program, and it is for students with autism only. That is not a program for students with intellectual disability. It is for autism. And so it is quite amazing to be sitting here today and showing you that there are options. There are options. And that has been an amazing thing that has just happened since 2018. So guys, this is brand new stuff. Okay, so what are these programs? What do they look like? Well, I'm going to go through Riverhawk Scholar. Keep in mind that this is very, very similar to Sooner Works. All the programs that I've just mentioned are very high quality programs, and so they have these components in them. So independent living, social skills, academics, and career development. And so independent living is just what it sounds like. Students are living in the dorms. They have roommates. They are learning how to manage their time. They are learning transportation, how to get around. They're learning that you can't live out of a giant pile of dirty laundry in the middle of your floor, that that's not okay. They're learning they have to, have good hygiene. They're learning all the things that any student learns in college, independent living. They do have trained RAs nearby on the floor in the dorm. And those RAs are there to provide what's called more direct support. So students, for instance, one of my favorite examples is, whereas maybe when I attended college, basically there was a floor meeting and they said, hey, the laundry is in the basement, have a great time. Well, so these students need to be shown where the laundry is. They need to be shown how to do the Tide Pods and the dryer. They need to be shown how to do the buttons, how to do the timing, how to do, and you know what? They may need that once, twice, a dozen, 20 times. Doesn't matter. They're in the program because they need the supports. And so that independent living piece does have a trained resident assistant. Different programs call them different things, but someone in the dorm that is a peer, guys, peers. Again, Eileen mentioned, the power of peers, on the bus buddy, and that is absolutely 100% true. Peers are so much more meaningful to these students. Not a para, not a teacher, not a professor, it's a peer. Social skills, same thing is said of the mentors that are there for the students. They're in social settings, as well as different programs do it differently. NSU, for instance, does have fitness mentors as well as social mentors. And so we know from statistics that a sedentary lifestyle is much more prevalent in individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities. So it was important for Lead, Learn, Live to have within the program outline fitness component. And so there are fitness mentors as well that meet up with the students, and they don't have to make them sweaty with weights. They need to do something active. So they may walk, they may swim, they may, bicycle, whatever they want to do that has to do with an active component. Social, the mentors hang out, they are friends. They do things together, they eat, they go to movies, they do whatever, right? It's social. And the reason for that is that students with intellectual developmental disabilities, they do need help on appropriate navigation of the social landscape. And it's very, very critical for success after college, after high school, after anything, that you're able to navigate that social piece. Clubs and organizations, as students join them, just like any other student. Sororities and fraternities are starting to open up to these students as well. And so the whole gamut of social skills is such an important pillar for these programs. Academics. Okay, guys. If you want to go to college, you do want to learn. And so very, very important that, that student wants to learn about something, is interested in something. And so academics have so much to do with so many areas of life. Not only, well, are you interested in a particular thing, but you know what? The the actual walking through what an academic class setting is part of being successful, right? You have to be there on time. You have to be able to sit and attend. You have to take some notes, or get notes and be able to, process that. You have to learn to ask questions. All of those things that go into a class is also very important in the academic setting. So students take a mix of catalog courses as well as program specific courses. And those program specific courses are there to help the students with what those students need help with. Okay, so for instance, it may be healthy lifestyles. It may be finance 101. I don't, that's not what they call it, but it's basically learning how to handle money in their ability to handle money, right? It's not accounting. They are not having to create huge spreadsheets and do lots of homework like we did if we were in accounting. But you know what? They do need to know that, okay, you have a paycheck, you can spend this much money, and then you can't do anything else, right? So it's the things that these students need help with as they learn and grow as an individual. They do have education coaches or tutors, different programs name them different things. And the classes are predominantly non-credit, okay? NSU, and I do not know about all the programs. I know that OU is working on transitioning a student into credit bearing classes. I know NSU has had a student that has taken some credit bearing. So although the programs are not degree seeking, meaning that the students aren't taking all classes for credit, if that student has the ability, there is some ability to do that. It depends on the program, and you have to get specifics from them. And career development, very, very important piece of the puzzle. So students are able to have internships up to 10 hours a week. Those internships start the second semester that they are on campus. So first semester, freshmen kind of get their feet wet and kind of get into a groove of being in college. But second semester, they are on campus in internships. We are very, very blessed to have facilitated a relationship between DRS and what started out as NSU as a pilot, and now it is, and for all the programs, they have been such an important partner. They are paying the internships for those students. I can't stress the importance of that enough, because I don't know about you, but I really don't want to work and not get paid. And so why are these students any different? I will tell you that a lot of the programs in the nation are unpaid internships. We have the blessing of having paid internships in Oklahoma at our programs, and DRS is doing that for these students. So these students are getting a paycheck. They are opening a bank account. They are learning that, I'll speak from experience, okay, that my son bought a $200 pair of headphones, and then, gosh, didn't understand why he had zero balance. And so that was early on. Well, you learn from that stuff, right? So how to deal with your money that you are getting from your paid internship is very, very important. A part of all these programs is the person-centered plan, and that plan charts the course of what these students are learning, their activities. Are we staying true to that person-centered plan? For instance, a student comes in and they want to learn computers. Well, all of a sudden, they want to sign up for hotel and restaurant. Well, that didn't track with their person-centered plan. So let's get together. Let's talk about that. Let's break it down and see what we need to do, because that's a living document. Just like I started out thinking I would do one thing in college, and I ended up in a very, very different field. Well, you know what? These students have that ability to change their mind too, because, they're college students. And I can't stress enough how important that is. They are able to make the choices they want to make. And if they need to change course, they change course. Now, I will say that all the programs are a little bit different in how they do that. I know that NSU has areas of concentration, and so they have a selection of different kind of paths that the students are taking courses in. OU has a different way of doing it. OSU will do a different way. So each program is a little bit different, but the main things remain, that they are able to choose courses they're interested in. They're able to get the supports they need to go towards that career that they're hoping for. And so those 4 pillars are the backbone of any quality program. And that brings us to something called the CTP. Okay, Comprehensive Transition Program is a federal designation, okay? And what that means is that programs have structured themselves so they have basic things in place to make sure, for instance, that the students are not in self-contained classes with all the other students, okay? There are great programs out there that are in that format, and that's wonderful. That's a great opportunity if those students want to do that. But what we're talking about here is inclusive, okay? So CTP has criteria that make sure the programs are inclusive, right? And that they do certain things so those students are college students. Once a program gets that designation, and this is so important, those students can apply for federal grants, for federal work study, and other different grants. Now, they cannot apply for student loans because this population, we do not want them saddled with debt, okay? And so it is a grant and work study that they're able to apply for. They go through the regular FAFSA format. NSU is a CTP, OU is a CTP, OSU is doing their application now. And so they're hoping to be a CTP just as soon as possible. USAO is different because it is a degree seeking program. So it is not for students with intellectual disability, which is what the CTP is for. And so that quality is super important. We are very blessed in Oklahoma that all of our programs are very high quality. Remember, I told you that CTP kind of is a floor, and I will tell you that all of our programs are way up here as far as what they provide. They are above that floor. So that is a really big thing for our students. All right. How in the world do we pay for this? College is expensive. It costs dollars, whether you are a student with autism, intellectual disability, or just, you wake up and you're just a student. So we are working very hard in our state to figure out, okay, how can we offset costs for these students? DRS was awesome in that they were first to the table. DRS clients, if you're a DRS client, you can qualify for up to $3,000 per semester. That goes within their sliding scale of financial need. They do pay for the internships, like I mentioned. We are working with DHS DDS right now on the waiver use potential to further offset costs. We've had several good meetings, and that is in process. I wish I had an answer right now. I do not, but I will tell you that that is a goal that they have, and they are working towards that, and we're very excited about that. Scholarships, there are not as many as there need to be, and so we are also working to how can we expand existing scholarships that will also include this population. And so we have great models from other states that have done that. So we are working on that as well with the state regents and with other entities to see about expanding scholarship opportunities for this population. Private pay, I don't know if anybody was on the DRS. They did a great job as always on presenting, but they talked a little bit about stable accounts, and that is a great opportunity to start that if you're back a few years. And then, self-pay obviously is what the majority is right now, because we're working very hard on how can we all work together in the state to have, you know, a piece here, a piece here, a piece here. And so we're able to get this cost ideally mostly covered for these students. There are several states that by the time you put all the braids together of their braided funding, they basically pay for practically all of the program. And honestly, that is our goal. I don't know if we'll achieve it, but I know that it takes time and effort, and we are working on that. That is the focus for us right now. Scholarships, there is a scholarship search engine called collegescholarships.org. That is the best engine that I know of that has the most widely available options. There's some crazy sounding opportunities there, but you know what? It all adds up. The stable account, which again, the DRS presentation mentioned, helps to be protected money for these students. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I know that I want to allow for questions and things like that. And then we want to talk about student preparation. I want to take just a little bit of a pause here and see if, Erin, were you able to get anything back on the poll about who all's here?
Yes, so we figured out that you cannot see it because you are on the Zoom end, but everybody else who entered on the WUVA app has been able, and the Zoom app, but anyway, so I can see the results. So everybody else has been able to answer. We have, as far as the tell me yourself, we have the majority, we have 29% are parent and caregivers.
Okay.
We have 6% educators, 18% providers, 41% agency and representatives.
Oh, okay.
No students, and 6% government representatives.
Fantastic. So I love that. I wish we had students, but I do love the array there. Does anyone have any questions before I go to student preparation? That's a lot of information. And I just wanted to see if anyone had any questions.
There are, on my end, I do not, just says you're doing a great job.
Oh. So well, I do see one. There was.
I was gonna say Anita's looking right now.
Yeah.
On the,
Cindy, she mentioned, I still see problems with school districts that are not adequately preparing students with IDD for the post-secondary opportunities. Are you also seeing this? Yes, we are. I've actually presented at both Tulsa Metro Special Services Program Managers as well as Edmond Special Services, and have talked to several special education directors and teachers in the state, and they've all asked me for help on preparation. And so we have a couple things that we have out. We're about to get our website out as well, and that will be downloadable on that. And that is a little preparation, very quick overview, as well as there will be more resources because preparation is huge. And here's the thing, we didn't have these options until 2018. And so it is amazing, you guys, and you all know this because you're here, and so you live in this zone. I was in Lawton at a regional fair, and that was great because I never got into that area for a fair. I had a very well-dressed gentleman that came up to me, and I thought, nice suit, but he acted like I should know him. I did not. And he said, I want to show you something. I want to show you a picture. And I thought, oh, yeah, okay. And so he pulled up his phone. He showed me a picture, and he showed me a picture of an adorable 5-year-old. She happened to have Down syndrome. And he said, I am the mayor. And he said, I had no interest in this until this. And he said, now I'm all about it. And so he actually had just met with Emily Scott with Autism Foundation, and they're going to be doing some trainings, and he is all about getting the information out and supporting education. And so every time we make a little gain by someone that has a personal connection, because honestly, that's a lot of what this has taken. It's taken amazing individuals with personal connections that know the value of this. And so we are starting to get a wider reach to get out there and get that education out. And so we're going to have this kind of one sheet front and back guide that is going to go out to all the special services directors to send home with all the students to get them starting to think about that. And I'm going to touch on some of those things in this presentation as well, because I know that was a question that had been asked a little bit. Are there any other questions before I go on? Okay.
And I would say just so those of you that know that if you the WOVA app and the Zoom, we learned they don't communicate very well. So that is why some of you are seeing, if you don't see the questions, and I see questions, if you're on the WOVA app, you'll see, but you don't see the ones on the Zoom. So we have two people that are moderating it. I will tell you, Julie, that on the second poll, what do you think is the most exciting thing about the possibility? We have 50% learning how to be more independent, and the other 50% said taking classes of interest.
Okay, great.
So, just so you know, and then I'll launch the third poll here in a minute.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about student preparation, shall we? So that really does start in elementary, and you are so right on that. The schools have not been really working towards that. They've really been working towards more of directly going into the workforce and where the job coaching potential is in the workforce. And so this is a shift that everybody's making right now because of these new programs. And so I'm just going to kind of touch on part of what you'll see in our steps to begin early in preparation information that's going to be on our website and out there. And so elementary, mid-high, high school. So it's kind of three different tiers of mindset. Okay. And in our minds, it breaks down into, you know, the IEP, which is kind of the governing body of preparation. Okay. The skills that kind of feed into that, the curriculum that feeds into that, and ADL, which is activities of daily living, okay, that also feed into that goal. And that goal is being able to choose what a student wants to do. Now, and again, everything we're talking about today is from the standpoint of inclusive post-secondary ed. But I'll tell you, it does relate to just anything. And so the student that is wanting to, for instance, go to Tulsa Tech and do hotel and restaurant. Okay, so that's going to be look a little bit different than the student that is wanting to do a college. And that's going to look a little different than a student that just wants to get out of school and doesn't want anything to do with it, wants to go to work, right? And so you have to start thinking about, for instance, in the IEP, okay, what does that look like? Well, the first thing to do is know what supports that student needs, and that usually goes directly to testing. So you need to know, you know, what those student strengths are, what they need to be successful, and start just building those little scaffold has always been my word, those little scaffolds to help them provide the support they need. The requirements that they need would be in that mid-high. Again, IEP speaks directly to, okay, what are the supports that student needs to be successful, right? And so the requirements for their desires. And so mid-high, they start to have more of a feeling on desires and goals on what they want to do. High school, that IEP needs to continue with the supports that hopefully have been able to scaffold back a little bit, so they're more independent. But also it goes into that IEP can have things in there like, you know, benefits planning, like making sure that VR connection is made. And so, you know, making sure that IEP is not just okay, check it off and go on, but really focused more on post-secondary. That is something that parents that we've talked to across the board haven't been thinking that way. And you know what? I didn't think that way either. When our son was going through school, because I was just so focused on, okay, what does this year look like and what do we need to do? But having that mindset change to start with, okay, supports, what do those look like, and what form do they take as we progress into middle and high school is very important. The curriculum. Curriculum is such a big part of that. Testing to know about what their strengths are again, and then how much general education curriculum can a student do when. And so that's so important to keep in mind, because the closer they are to doing general education curriculum, and I don't mean they have to do all the work and get A's, okay? I'm just saying in that groove of general education, that is ideal. And then as they go through to high school, again, as much general ed curriculum as they can get, with the supports that they need to be successful. Skills, those things are feeding directly into the curriculum and the IEP. And so functional skills in elementary school, putting things away, following directions, those are a skill. And those are a skill that directly lead to how can they manage curriculum. In elementary school, in kindergarten, it may be circle time, right? But then it goes all the way up to high school, and the skills they need in high school go through being able to ask questions, being able to manage how you handle multiple classes and things like that. And so it's a progression for elementary, mid to high. A student is not expected to do everything all at once. And you have to remember that post-secondary education program is there to provide supports. So those students, don't have to be absolutely ready to do everything independently, because you know what? That's what the programs are for. It's to help them continue their progression to independence. Activities of daily living. So what does that look like? Well, in elementary school, it looks at maybe just identifying emotions, a delayed gratification. Maybe they don't get what they want when they want it every time, as far as students going through regular developmental growth. But activities of daily living, it makes sense to have that progression. So you start off very small and you have all these years to work on that. Middle school, chores, and how do you attack something to achieve a goal, self-regulation. Those are kind of that middle high componentry. And then high school is things, okay, what would this student need that could help them be more ready for post-secondary? Well, that is time management. That is being able to talk about what they need, and that sounds really, really simple, but as a parent and as a parent advocate, it is a shift, a mindset shift to think about trying to structure as much for your child as you can, but also being able to give that child the freedom to start being able to communicate choice and what they want and what they need and why. And so all of those things kind of work together for that next step planning. It's kind of like, don't think of, you hear, well, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Well, think about it in little bitty steps that start all the way back in elementary school. If that student is, you have kids that say, well, I want to be a teacher. Well, in elementary school, you can say, well, to be a teacher, teachers have to go to college. And so you just start introducing those ideas and getting those things out there in student preparation. This is kind of a presentation all by itself, and I'm flying through it, but I want to just kind of give you the ideas of these points that go into meeting the goal of being able to do inclusive post-secondary. And I will tell you that every director of every program that I've ever talked to, this desire and motivation is the big thing. It is so huge, guys. I'll never forget, and it stays with me forever, that a director who's now a dear friend, she runs one of the most successful programs in the nation. You know, she said, I can't tell you how many times we've had these great interviews, you know, and we have the child there and the parents there, and it's just amazing. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, this kid is perfect for our program. And the parents leave and they're taken off to another section of that application interview. And then the student stays with a different group. And that as soon as the parent leaves, she said, I can't tell you, we've had several students that over the years that have just said, I do not want to come here. My parents want me to come here. You know, this is not what I want to do. So, you know, listen to your student and see where their brain is going, and talk about what they want to do, what they're motivated to do. You know, to have the desire to go is such a big part of being successful, right? And so what about the future? We'll talk about it with your student. Talk about what that looks like, you know, through the growing up years, as they're able, or as their maturity enables, take them to college campuses, you know, go to a football game or basketball game and talk about, and don't be so focused on the activity that you leave out where you are. You know, you're at a football game in a college stadium, and gosh, let's just drive around, and there's dorms, and, you know, did you know the students live here? I mean, it's thinking outside of the box a little bit, in a way that we haven't even had that opportunity to do yet in Oklahoma, but now we do. Universities, visit them, go. And it doesn't have to be a formal engagement, just go drive around. I mean, if you're in Tulsa, drive around TU, Oklahoma City, there's several opportunities, you know, drive around whatever university is close, just to get that familiarity. My son does not have the ability to envision. Okay. So I could have used the word college for all of his growing up years. That would have no meaning to him unless he puts his feet on the ground and walks around and is able to touch it. He can't visualize it. He's too concrete of a thinker. And so, you know, visit, get the kids out, start them young and get that mindset going. Open houses, all of these programs have open houses. And so attending those open houses when your kiddo is in high school, to give them the idea is so important, because the best part of every open house is the student panel. And I have been to so many of these, and I look out over the audience, and, you know, the students are there with their parents, and their parents are very attentive the whole time. The students kind of like this, you know, until the student panel. And the student panel comes in, you know what, those are peers, okay? And all of a sudden, these students that were just like, you know, they look like they were not listening, but we know they were. They snap to attention. They are asking questions. They are wanting to know what that student thinks, you know, and they ask questions about, were you nervous when you started? You know, was it weird to take a shower when other people were around? Was it, you know, what's your favorite thing you do? And, you know, when the panel student says the cafeteria, you know, that other student goes, oh, cool, great. Because, you know, I mean, so it's peer to peer. And so those open houses are gold. I can't tell you, stress that enough. And compare those programs. Our website is about built. It is actually with Able Tech now for accessibility, because we want it very accessible. But that will be a one-stop shop that has all the programs in Oklahoma. And you guys, there will be more. We're working on expanding that to community college and tech centers, because not everyone wants to do a residential option. But the OKIPSE Alliance org website will be a great spot. It will also have these resources I've told you about. We will be adding to it, because that's probably the number one thing I've heard from parents is, where can I just go to one place to get all that information? thinkcollege.net is the clearinghouse for programs across the nation. And they have all the information for over 300 programs in the nation. So I would encourage you to go there and look and just see what's out there. I mean, get a feel for what's out there and what that looks like. You can get application information. You can get all kinds of information that's just so important. So start early. And then that, wait, what is just a reminder that the students need to know what it is you're talking about when you're talking about college, right? I mean, they have no concept unless you built a little bit of a bridge to get them to that thought process. So they can't have a motivation or a desire for what they don't understand. And so starting early is the thing to do. I love this picture. These are some student preparation tips that all of the directors for the programs in Oklahoma have told me. And I put this picture in there because I will tell you that I had lunch with this young lady's mom when she was in 5th grade. And I was asking her how things were going, and she said, well, good. She's in her special ed class. She's a leader. You know, she's able to help all the other kids. And it's just such a great thing. She feels so good in those classes. And I said, so is she in an all self-contained class? And she said, well, yeah, because she needs that. And I said, do you know that she needs that? You just told me that she's helping all the other students. And I said, do you know if she's challenged enough, if she's able to do a general ed class? And she said, well, no, I mean, I hadn't thought about that because the team hasn't mentioned that. I said, so you are part of the team. And if you are ever thinking about the possibility of her going to college, let's talk about maybe we add a general ed class a year. Maybe we add one next year. And you start talking to your team to find out the teacher that gets a student with intellectual developmental disability, that is welcoming, that would be a good fit. And you gradually scaffold that student into being able to be more and more in the regular setting rather than in a self-contained classroom the whole time. Because this young lady, that was her situation. That mom did take that advice and gradually had her daughter at a general ed class starting in 6th grade through high school. That picture is the picture of her as she opened her acceptance letter to a college program. And what is most amazing that I want to impress upon all of you are 2 things from this photo, and I asked her permission to use it. She gave me permission. Is that number 1, she has been accepted to 3 programs. So just like anyone that is wanting to go to college, you know, you are looking to see what's the best fit. She has choices. Okay. Number 2 is her mom was not any different than me. I would have told you that the chances of our son being able to go to college were slim to none at that age because of all the things that are going on with him. So don't ever decide what you think your kid can or cannot do, because anything's possible. I do believe that every person is created for a reason and a purpose. And so although we know our kids so well, we don't know everything. And you just don't know what is planned for them to be able to do. So I love this picture because it's just a reminder of, okay, mom, dad, get out of your box, see what's possible, push to get done what your student may be able to do. Okay. So that desire and motivation goes right back into that. They can't have desire and motivation for something they do not understand. So that goes back to talking about it early, getting them in that mindset, right? Can they use a smartphone? Take medications, you know, personal hygiene. How good are they about that? I love the story that one of my directors tell me that, you know, this mom just swore that her student was completely independent as far as hygiene. It wasn't an issue. Everything was great. And as the daughter was coming to the support classes, they just noticed her hair was getting greasier and greasier and greasier. And it was like, oh my gosh, she's not taking a shower ever. And so at the end of like the week and a half, they accompanied her to her dorm and said, just walk us through, how are you doing on hygiene? She said, oh, I take a shower every morning and wash my hair. And they were like, really? Are you sure? Well, show us what you do. Well, so it turns out that the mom had stood outside of the shower when the daughter took a shower, and she would hold out her hand and the mom would put the shampoo in and she would shampoo her hair. Well, without the mom outside the door, she just kind of left that step off. And so, so you take for granted things, but you know what? That's what the program's for. They were able to step in and go, oh, okay, you know what? Here's a step you need to do. So that personal hygiene, it matters, right? Reading and math, functional basics. Okay, every program's a little bit different. Like I said, the OSU program is working with students that have more significant needs than what what NSU may require. So all that's a little bit different. You need to check with the programs, but no severe behavior, emotional problems typically. Oh, Erin, am I out of time? I'm out of time. Okay. How do they handle change? Do they have the potential to be successful, to be an employee? Do they understand dietary restrictions? Have your student do a camp and encourage them to ask for help when they need it. And I know I raced through that. There's so much to cover. So I want to cover some questions though. Does anyone have questions?
And I will say, just so you know, that I have been opening the polls as needed. And I will say that on the one that says, what makes you unsure about the possibility of inclusive post-secondary education programs? We do have someone that said, I've watched my typically developing child struggle, so I worry about my non-typical child.
Right. And that, that is a great comment. And I will answer it this way. So there's something called the dignity of risk. And, I was pretty much a on it parent all the time, make sure everything's in place as much as possible to keep your kids safe. But, part of being able to be independent is having some things that are difficult that happen, but having the support around them to help them with those things. And so I will tell you that these programs, they're the cost of a college education plus a fee. And that fee is for support. Okay. So you're paying for support for that student to have what they need. Those supports are individualized because every student is different. And so you do have to have it in your mindset to step out and have some trust in that program staff. And that's going to come from you visiting and talking to that staff and seeing who you're most comfortable with and what their procedures are. Because I am with you. It was a gut wrencher to watch our son walk just with a backward wave is what he did when we dropped him off. And it was like, aren't you going to break down and cry? Oh no, he was gone. And so, but it just depends on your ability to trust that those programs are there for a purpose. And that purpose is to help that child become an independent young adult. So I respect that fear very much. I've been there.
Absolutely. I don't see any chats on the WUVA app. Anita, do you have any? We're going to check the Zoom chat as well.
Oh, here's one.
Okay.
I think schools do not see opportunities to get students involved in school. Safety patrol clubs, organizations, not just football manager, coffee cart, where the primary service role is, not true meaningful interaction. And that's right. And you guys, what Eileen said this morning is critical, that, you guys being your advocate for your students, being able to do all the different options that are there for every student not just what a special education student might need. That is up to you as parents to get in there and get it done. And you're right, schools need to see that those opportunities should be there for all the students, not just the quote, whatever typically developing student is, you know.
No, that's great. Is there any other questions that anybody has? If you want to put them in either one of the chats. Julie, you probably were having difficulty seeing the Zoom, but I can see the others, which is good because
Yeah,
you can see one and I can't see.
I can see the Zoom, yes.
And we appreciate you guys so much joining us today. Is there any other last minute questions?